Hi students, subject computer science for grade 4. In the last class we have discussed about the new lesson data and data storage devices. In that lesson we have discussed about the what is meant by data, information and then data representation and then memory. Just recall the topic first. What is meant by data? Data is a raw fact. Raw fact is nothing but it is an unprocessed data. Next, information. Information is a processed data. Next, we discussed about the data representation. How the data can be represented in the computer. Data can be represented in the computer as zeros and ones. First, we discussed about the bit, nibble and then byte. Bit is a binary digit. It is a zeros or one. Next, nibble, it is a collection of 4 bits. Next one, byte, it is a collection of 8 bits. Next, we have discussed about the memory. Memories can be represented in many forms such as KB, MB, GP, TB, PB, EB, GP and YB. Today, the same lesson data and data storage devices. Today, we will discuss about the three topics such as classification of memory, primary memory, and then secondary memory. First side topic is a classification of a memory. First, what does mean by a memory? The word memory refers to the place where we can store anything. So it is very essential for our human being. We can store the information in our brain. Likewise, the computer can store the information in the memory. Memory can be classified into two types, that is an volatile memory and then non-volatile memory. First, we discussed about the volatile and non-volatile memory. Discussed about the volatile and non-volatile memory. First, what is an volatile memory? Volatile memory is nothing but it can loses the data when the power source is turned off. Listen students, when the power is off means everything can be stored on the memory is deleted. So in the non-volatile memory, even though the power is off, it cannot loses its data. Next, example for the volatile memory is an RAM, cache, register. So these are placed inside the CPU. Next, non-volatile examples are drivers, hard disk drives, and then read-only memory USB sticks. Listen students, USB sticks, once we can store data, it cannot be lost when the power is off. So these are the examples of the non-volatile memory. Some of the examples of non-volatile memory. See the picture students. Which devices you are already known? Very good. CD. Next one is an USB. Then memory card. Very good. So some of the non-volatile memories are, first one is a floppy disk, second one is a CD, third one is a hard drive, that is an internal hard drive, another one is an external hard drive. Next one, flash drive is nothing but USB. Then last one is an memory card or SD card. Memory hierarchy. Hierarchy is nothing but order. So computer memory can be divided into two types, that is an primary memory and secondary memory. Again, the primary memory can be divided into two types, that is a RAM and then ROM. Next one is an secondary memory. Secondary memory falls, what are the types of devices? Floppy disk, hard disk, CD, DVD and pen drive. The first type of memory is the primary memory. Primary memory is also known as the main memory. Main is important memory or internal memory. Next, it is located in the motherboard. Motherboard is nothing but a board which consists of wires, ICs and so many circuits or entire board. The motherboard is placed inside the CPU. Where the motherboard is located? CPU. Next point, it is directly connected with the CPU. Next, this is further classified into two parts. Already said RAM and ROM. The first type of primary memory is a RAM or RAM. RAM is also abbreviated as random access memory. Random access memory. It can store the data the user can currently uses. Next, the RAM needs power of electricity to work. Next one, when it is turned off, it will be erased automatically. So each and every information stored in the RAM are erased when the power is turned off. Next one, this allows the computer to run the software faster. If the RAM is in the computer means the computer can work faster. Again, the RAM is classified into two types: SRAM, 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 and DRAM, DRAM, DRAM. SRAM, SRAM is nothing but static RAM, static RAM. Static, the word refers to memory retain its content as long as the power is supplied. So, when the power is supplied for long hours means the static RAM is enabled. The SRAM does not need any refresh periodically, so it need not to be refreshed. Next, RAM is faster but more expansive. So it is very faster but it is more expansive means more calm. Next type of RAM is DRAM. DRAM is a dynamic RAM. Dynamic means changing. So it contains the data when the electricity is available. So the DRAM contain when the electricity is available means the data is found. The RAM need to be refreshed periodically. In the RAM there is no refreshment for the periodically, but the RAM need refresh periodically because RAM works slower but RAM it's a faster. Next, it is a very cheaper in cost and it requires very less space. The next type of primary memory is a ROM. ROM is nothing but read only memory. Read only memory. The word refers it can only read the data. We can read the data only. We cannot change their data. Next, this is a non-volatile in nature. Non-volatile means it is nothing but when the power is turned off, the data cannot be erased. Next, there are three types of ROM: PROM, EPROM, and EEPROM. PROM is abbreviated as Programmable Read-Only Memory. Programmable Read-Only Memory. Next one is an EEPROM. The next hierarchy of a memory is a secondary memory. Secondary memory is nothing but the data can store permanently. Permanently means for long time. Next one, they are not accessed by the CPU. They are not accessed by the CPU. For example, CD. You know CD? Okay, very good. CD, we can store the data. It cannot directly accessed by the CPU. So each and every data in the secondary storage devices are first taken into the RAM. After the data in the RAM are accessed by the CPU. So it is not directly accessed by the CPU. Secondary memory is also called as external memory. Primary memory is also known as internal because RAM and ROM are placed inside the CPU. But secondary storage devices are called as external memory. See some of the example: hard disk, flash drive, floppy disk, zip disk, CD-ROM, and tapes. We already known about the primary and secondary memory. Now comparing between their primary and secondary memory. See the chart. First one is in capacity. In the primary memory it is very small capacity. In the secondary very large capacity, storing capacity. Next one is access speed. Access means we can store and retrieve, that is called access. So accessing speed is an very fast, and then storage, secondary storage is a medium. Next one is a cost. Cost is very expensive for primary and cheap for secondary. Next, portability. Portability means it can be moved from one place to another. So in the primary memory it is a fixed, because RAM and ROM in a CPU, it is a fixed one. But secondary storage devices are portable, so we can easily move from one place to another. For example, pen drive we can take anywhere. Next one, need is a compulsory, because it is very compulsory to work their computer. Primary. Secondary memory is an alternative, it is an optional. Whether we want to store any other extra information means we use secondary memory. The next topic is how the primary and secondary memory works. First point, when you switch or restart a computer, there is no data in the RAM. See the first point, see the left side, a picture is there, that is called the RAM. RAM is nothing but it is a chip. So when we switch on or restart the computer, there is no data in the RAM. First one. Second one, in the situation, the program in the BIOS is nothing but basic input output system. Input is nothing but a keyboard or mouse as an input devices. Output devices is nothing but monitor, printer. So these devices takes the responsibility to load in the operating system. So the BIOS will upload their programs for input output devices from the hard disk to RAM. Next point, while the OS is being transferred to RAM, the desktop appears on the screen. So after transfer the OS into the RAM, it will run, the desktop will appear. This process is called booting. Booting is nothing but it can load their data or program into their RAM. The RAM will start the desktop screen one by one, that is called booting. The booting process. See the picture, the last image, that is called processor. Next one is the blue color chip is called RAM. Next one is a hard disk, and then ROM. First, why the operating system is loaded in the RAM. First point, BIOS. BIOS is nothing but basic input output system, that is present in ROM. So booting process, it can tells the hard disk. It can tells the hard disk to load the operating system. That is the first step. To load the operating system on their hard disk. Without operating system, the computer cannot work. Listen. Next one, after loading their operating system on the hard disk, it can again load it into their RAM. RAM for their loading purpose, for their internal storage purpose, it can load it in the RAM. Next, it can, the operating system is available as needed. The processor should be an operating system. Whatever the operating system is available on the process, it can process. Next one, this is the reason What is the reason? Because the RAM faster and execute the instruction. RAM is very fast in executing the instruction, and then storage space of the RAM is very less when compared to hard disk, because a hard disk is a huge storage capacity. RAM is a very small memory capacity. So each and every time, this is the reason the operating system can be loaded in the RAM first during the time of booting. Once the hard disk can be loaded on the operating system on the RAM. This is the time to recall our lesson, data and data storage devices. In this lesson, we have discussed about the classification of a memory. Memory can be classified on the basis of the inside their CPU, volatile and non-volatile memory. Next one, the memory hierarchy. Memory hierarchy, it can be classified into two types, primary and then secondary. Again, the primary memory it classified into two types, RAM and then ROM. Next one is in secondary memory. There are several secondary storage devices, is nothing but CD, floppy disk, USB, hard disk and then memory card. Next we have discussed about the primary memory. Primary memory is nothing but the memory which is in the internal memory in the CPU. Secondary memory is called as a external memory. Next we have discussed about the booting process. Booting process is nothing but, what is meant by a booting process? Booting process is a, once the operating system, that is an OS, can be loaded in the hard RAM, that is the desktop appears on the screen. This process is called booting. Next, why the operating system is loaded into the RAM? Because it can occupy a less amount of memory. So each and every time the hard disk loaded the OS in the RAM for the computer booting system. Thank you students. I hope you understand this topic, memory. Thank you students.